Hello, I'm Charles Brock and I'm a Highland Woodworker. I just love coming to Highland Woodworking in Atlanta, Georgia. It's where I get all my fine woodworking tools and a great woodworking education. Let me show you what we've got on the big show today. This time on the Highland Woodworker, a handy guide to hand tools will take you on an insightful tool tour. Plus,
it's not an intuitive tool.
wooden hand screws are great for getting that perfect hold, but there's a secret on how to use them properly. Fine Woodworking Magazine shows us how in the finer points.
I've been a woodworker since I was 14 years old. 14 from 98 leaves about 84 years.
He is known as the Dean of Woodworkers, and his accomplishments go far beyond his many masterpieces. Spend a moment with Al Hudson. These stories and more this time on the Highland Woodworker. Hello, Monty Montgomery.
Hey Chuck, how are you? It's good to see you today.
Well, Monty was in a previous episode, and we took a tour of table saws and joiners, and so have you gotten started with your shop?
I sure have. Got up and running now.
So I suppose you're ready for hand tools.
I am.
Well, it's a great thing to get into, especially in today's hybrid shop where you kind of mix both power and hand tools. But hand tools kind of get you to the finish line and kind of separate those who are building birdhouses maybe from those who are building fine furniture.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so everything kind of starts with a bench. A lot of people overlook that as far as being a hand tool. But bench does two things real well. One thing, it holds the work. You've got various vices, and you can put the wood in the vise, tighten it up, and then you can use a plane, you can use something to measure or mark it with, you can use a saw, or you can do shaping right there.
Okay.
Every project, Monty starts with usually wood in the rough. As you see, it's rough sawn. There are no real square edges or whatever. And so you have to be able to mark it, measure it, and prepare it for whatever work you're doing. So it starts there. But in order to get it to this point, where it's what we call 4 square, then you've got to be able to dimension it. And so after you've marked it for size, then there are a series of planes that you use in order to be able to get it squared up like this. And so, and in that process, just like you'd use a table saw to cross cut or to cross cut or to rip, there are hand saws, a series of hand saws that can be used. And finally, the art project side of it is shaping. And so those are pretty much the families.
Okay.
Well, this is a family of measuring and marking tools, because as you're working, Monty, you need to be able to, first of all, either draw or cut lines many times that are square. And so this will work like that, or use a mechanical pencil and draw that line. But it's over and over again, you're trying to measure and mark different spots and places for joinery or the width of the board or whatever as you're working. So measuring and marking tools are kind of at the heart or the beginning of every project. And so there's kind of a huge family here. Not only do we have squares, sometimes you need a square that's small and will stand up, you know. And then at other times you need to be able to mark something that is around a corner, where you mark one side and follow it around the corner. This is a saddle for that purpose. And then sometimes you need to be able to mark angles, and so this is has got all the various degrees of, so that you can start at a beginning point and mark out an angle.
Oh, I see, okay.
And then use a straight edge to continue that line in
Right.
some direction. But measuring and marking tools are something that you just have to have. Now, not only do many times you use a knife like that, sometimes you can use a wheel type or a marking gauge. So I can take something like this, use this fence here,
Wow, okay.
and it's another
Oh, yeah.
way, it's another way to get to square. But this relies on the end of the board being square.
Okay.
It's a great group of tools. And so you have to have an assortment. But you know, it all comes down to the basic question. And you've heard me ask it over and over again.
What type of work am I going to do?
That's right. As soon as you decide that, it opens up what kind of tools you need to invest in.
All right.
Chuck, tell me a little bit about these planes. I see quite a bit of difference here, you know, the length of them, the size and everything. Tell me how you would use these.
Well, they all have a very different purpose in some ways, and in some ways they can all be used almost to do the same thing. Of course, this being the smallest, if I were to buy a hand plane to start with, the first one I'd buy would probably be just a block plane.
Okay.
To get to know how to use a plane, how to sharpen the iron that does the cutting. This is a great one because you're always going to need, every woodworker will need a block plane. And this little Lee Nielsen is a tremendous plane. But then the next one I would buy would either be a smoother like this or a jack plane, which is just like this and just a little longer. Some of the planes have their bevel up and some have their bevel down.
Okay.
And they fit different types of situations, different types of wood, like either bevel up or bevel down,
Okay.
different angles. But that's a long story. So one of the things that you end up doing is when you start with a piece of wood that is rough sawn like this, it might have a wane in it, or one side's higher than the other, or twist or whatever. So you've got to get that out. And so this is a special purpose plane here. And see where
Yes.
the iron is curved?
Yeah.
It's got
Wow.
a big camber to it. Well, you can take this and you can work cross grain like that. If this corner's higher, you can work this way and take that corner down and then take this corner
Wow.
down. Okay. And if you don't have a joiner, it's a great way to go.
Yeah.
Well, then you have big granddaddy plane like this. This is a number 7 joiner, and there are number 8 joiners too. This one, if you've got a big surface and you want to make it flat, this will ride all the highs and all the lows and can do some great work for you. In lieu of, or even in combination with, a joiner, a power joiner.
Okay.
And then in the end, you'd want to be able to smooth out the work. In other words, add just a perfectly smooth surface. And this makes very thin cuts
Okay.
so that the end result is there's very little sanding for the surface. Okay. And so this is kind of what you would end up with. But a great family of tools that will always smile at you and be able to get you through those rough spots.
Awesome.
All right, saws. You got to be able to cut it to size. Okay. Well, this is by no means an exhaustive look at the family because they're larger hand saws. And you want to be able to rip, which is this way, and you want to be able to cross cut.
Okay.
And you want to be able to cut joinery too. Well, right now, there are a large group of people that love the Japanese or Asian type saws. They cut on the pull stroke. And like this saw is very flexible, and you can cross cut and you can rip with it. This saw has a rigid back, so you can cut in a straight line with it a lot better. But they all cut on the pull stroke, mainly because Asians tend to do their work historically sitting down.
Wow.
Yeah, but these can be used at benches too. The good old English saw that we have here, it cuts on the push stroke. And this is a kind of a combination saw here. You can cut joinery with it, you can cut dovetails, you can cut cross cut, you can cut tenons with it. It's a very good combination saw. But there are all kinds of specialty saws, and this one is one that you would use to flush cut something, like you had a plug or something that was standing proud, and you could do that and cut it just flush with the surface. This one, you can cut circles with it, or you can cut along curved lines. It's a fret saw. So, and this is kind of a newfangled fret saw here. So the saw family is exhaustive, but you've got to be able to cross cut and rip. And of course, Monty, you need to be able to shape the wood, or to cut and pair joinery. So let's kind of start with just a simple chisel. These are all, or this is an edge tool, and all of them have either an edge or groups of edges that cut. And so even though we haven't talked about it, you have to be able to sharpen all of these too, which is another family of tools. But they're gouges, and they come in, of course, a whole bunch of different sizes, and you've got to keep them sharp to do their work. And then for cleaning up surfaces and shaping surfaces, there's nothing like a nice spoke shave. And of course, they come in varieties with a flat sole, or and this one has kind of a rounded sole. Sometimes you just want to shape something that might be greenwood. And pioneers for years have used draw knives. Take bark off and then to shape a surface, like a spindle on a Windsor chair. And then there are other things like a travisher, which has a curved blade here so that you can kind of dig in deep and hollow out maybe a bowl or a seat bottom. And the same with this. This is a little bit more like the Pioneer tool here, but it's for a big curve. And then rasp. The rasp has got a whole bunch of little cutters here, little edges, and you use it to take that surface that you have shaped and continue shaping it or smoothing it out with a different rasp. And then finally, one of the last things you'll use on a project many times before, and maybe even you won't use sandpaper, if you do a good job with a scraper. It's got a little burr here on the edge that you learn how to manipulate, and then you just scrape the surface. So there's hand tool families, and then there are many, many more items than what I've shown you that fit into those families. But again, it all
depends on what kind of work you're going to do.
That's right. That's the magic question and answer.
Well, Chuck, thank you. I appreciate you showing me everything.
Thank you, Monty. Well, Ed Sint, what is new for the toolbox?
We have quite a spread here. So, woodworking toolkit for kids, and we have put together an assembly of tools over the years, it turns out that we get a lot of calls from our customers who want to woodwork with their kids or their grandkids, and they're looking for tools. And we decided, instead of having kids' tools, we'd put together some tools that were just perfectly fit for smaller hands, budding woodworkers, but are actual bona fide tools.
With safety in mind.
With safety in mind, exactly. So they can cut and they can drill and they can build with their own tools and have better success because they fit their hands better.
All right, so what have we got here?
Well, marking and measuring, a nice 12-inch combination square. And then moving over to drilling, we have a nice egg beater drill with a set of drill bits. And for more marking and measuring, a 12-foot tape. It's complete with fractions on it so that everybody can get used to fractions at an early age. A nice size hammer. You can feel that that size is just right for a smaller grip.
Perfect.
Of course, safety goggles to fit a smaller face. Instead of a block plane with a sharp iron, we have a Sureform plane that allows them to learn to trim wood, but it's not gonna cause an injury like a sharp block plane might with a really
What a good
sharp plane.
idea. Yeah.
And then for cutting, both straight cuts and curved cuts, coping saw, 6-inch coping saw, let them get the hang of cutting. To hold their material, a nice clamp-on vise to clamp on to their bench or to their table at home. And you could put wooden jaws on that if you wanted to. And then a couple books with some projects. Well, don't leave out also, we have some fasteners there, a nice supply of fasteners. And some sandpaper. And those rubber bands are actually act as clamps. They speak of that in the books here. 2 nice books on projects. So there's all kinds of things in here that can get kids going, things that they can use around the house, toys, and just have success building.
That is just marvelous. I think I'm going to get this and get my granddaughter started in the wonderful world of woodworking.
That sounds great.
Thank you, Ed.
You're welcome.
Coming up, if you feel clumsy handling wooden hand screws, you're not alone. Find Woodworking Magazine demystifies one of the most confusing tools in the finer points.
Made that in 1933.
What were you doing in high school? Well, Al Hudson was making masterpieces and invited to the big leagues. His amazing story is coming up. You're watching the Highland Woodworker.
I'm just an average, down-to-earth woodworker. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably about a 5. But one place I score a perfect 10 is right here, and I plan on keeping all 10. That's why I have a SawStop table saw. And there's more. Plenty of power, superior dust collection, and absolute accuracy. These features have made it the best-selling cabinet saw in America. Let Highland Woodworking help you put a SawStop in your shop.
Highland Woodworking stocks a wide selection of Rikon power tools, known for their innovative design and rugged durability. Highland has sold thousands of Rikon's industry-leading bandsaws with sizes to fit every woodworking need, from the compact, affordable 10-inch model to competitively priced 14 and 18-inch models. Shop us also for Rikon's reliable planers, lathes, and professional low-speed grinder, all with an exceptional 5-year warranty. Rikon Power Tools. Woodworkers count on American-made forest saw blades for smooth, quiet cuts every time, without splintering, scratching, or tear-outs. The famous Woodworker 2 is the all-purpose combination blade. But for special cuts, Woodworker 2s are available for cutting dovetails, for flat bottom joinery. A 30-tooth blade is perfect for ripping, a 48-tooth blade for superior cross cuts, and a finger joint blade set. There is a perfect Forrest Woodworker 2 for every table saw cut. Highland Woodworking has been a leader in woodworking education for more than 30 years. They offer all kinds of woodworking classes year-round, ranging from how to hand-cut dovetails and mortises to how to sharpen a plane or a chisel, how to build a cabinet, a chair, or a bookcase, or how to turn a wooden bowl. There are classes on wood finishing, French polishing, and even antique furniture restoration. For a list of upcoming classes that may interest you, just look in their catalog or go to highlandwoodworking.com.
Hand screws are one of the most useful tools and one of the most misunderstood tools. And I'll tell you, I tried using them for years. I gave up.
I can't imagine why.
And here's why. And you know, it's not an intuitive tool to try and make these things work.
If there weren't so many of them in people's shops who I truly trust, I would have given up on them long ago.
It was like, why use them? They're just crazy. Yeah. So I had a hard time, you know, like everyone, and I finally learned how to use these from my friend Will Neptune. And it turns out that there's a technique, like a lot of stuff. There's a technique, and the way you start, this middle handle here is in your left hand, and this does not move. So the handle on the outside here in your right hand, this turns like that, okay? So you have this basically straight, like this, and you don't have it all funny like that. So you get it straight, and then see how my left hand is stationary, and I'm like that. Okay, so now I want to tighten this. So you see I got that, and I'm close. So if I tighten it like this, I'm open there. So now the trick, or the secret, is that both of your hands have to move one way or the other at the same time. So now they've now become parallel, and I tighten it with my right hand like that, and now I'm good. Okay, so now if I keep going, if I keep going too far, you see how that's opened up there? See that?
Yeah.
So now I'm going like this.
Okay.
Okay, so now you go the other way, and you keep going the other way. Tighten that, and that's a little bit too far. So when you're not talking about it and just doing it, it's a lot quicker.
Okay.
Okay, so there.
Oh, now I got it. Yeah.
Okay, so
And then give it a crank and we're
now, yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so now the cool thing is, as long as you don't move this handle here, the middle handle, you can loosen this, take that off, and come back, tighten the outside handle, and it'll stay the same all the time. Okay, the older, better quality ones do. Some of the new ones I've seen don't do that as well. Okay, and the nice thing about this, I can now put this on the drill press. I clamp this on the drill press, I put a piece in here, I tighten it, it's the same all the time. Loosen it, tighten it, loosen it, tighten it. Okay?
I think the key for me is always keeping this upper handle in the left hand.
Always.
And then
Yeah.
muscle memory is just going to start to kick in.
Yeah,
Like I said, I've struggled with these,
so have I.
probably because I was never consistent Because if you hold it this way, all of the moves are backwards.
It all goes to hell.
So
Yeah.
get some muscle
And-
memory going and keep them in the same position.
And the important thing is you're not moving two hands like this. You're just moving one. Your right hand is the only thing that moves.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Unless you're left-handed, and in which case I can't help you.
All right. It definitely takes some practice.
But once you
But
get it,
even just learning that systematic approach, I don't know. I'm going to be getting some more of these at flea markets pretty soon.
check this out. See how that's open? Now, open, both hands are turning, and it's coming parallel. It's almost there, not quite. Now I'm tight. Okay? That's it. So
All
you
right.
practice that.
Yeah. All right.
And on eBay, you can get these things for, very cheap, and all different sizes. I have a couple in the back of the shop that are twice as big as that, but I use these little ones for a lot of stuff.
And one thing that I've used them for is I actually used to screw them down to my bench top.
Exactly.
And when I didn't have a vise.
Exactly.
And that was my vise right there.
I've used these demonstrating at places where, demonstrating in a guild or something like that, and they don't have a bench with a vise. I was like, okay, so I'll bring this and clamp it down to something.
Yeah.
And now I have my own vise. Okay.
Well,
So,
definitely
very useful tools.
Definitely worth picking up.
Yep.
Thanks for showing us.
Okay.
Coming up,
It was the prettiest wood I'd ever seen.
beeswing.
Beeswing, and that what you see here is the beeswing mahogany.
A moment with Al Hudson. You're watching the Highland Woodworker. Are your tools Tormek sharp? Tormek, consistent, reliable, and razor sharp. Tormek, sharpening innovation.
For 35 years, Lee has manufactured the world's best joinery jigs. From our award-winning dovetail jigs and mortise and tenon jigs, to newer innovations like router table jigs. Easily add strong, beautiful joinery to your woodworking pieces, like half-blind dovetails, box joints, mortise and tenon joints, and through dovetails. Lee, simply the easiest and most versatile router joinery jigs.
Whiteside Machine Company has been in business for over 30 years, providing customers with quality American-made router bits. Fine Woodworking Magazine has declared Whiteside router bits best overall and best value when compared against 17 other brands. No matter the router application, they have the type and profile of carbide router bit you need. When you put a Whiteside router bit to work in your shop, it is guaranteed to make you smile. Moment with a Master is brought to you by Highland Woodworking, fine tools since 1978. Let Highland's legendary wood slicer resaw blade help make it easy for you to get great results sawing thick lumber into thinner boards. The wood slicer is designed to cut much faster, smoother, and quieter than ordinary bandsaw blades. You'll be amazed at how smooth a surface you'll get with a wood slicer. Its variable tooth pattern greatly reduces noise and vibration. Order a wood slicer from Highland Woodworking for your bandsaw today. Now sit back and be inspired with our Moment with a Master. Al Hudson, you're known as the dean of woodworkers, probably for a couple of reasons. I've heard you're a little older than most of us guys. So what's your accomplishment of age at this point?
My accomplishment,
Yeah, you're 90, 92, 94. How old are you?
98 years old.
98. That's amazing. How long have you been a woodworker?
I've been a woodworker since I was 14 years old. 14 from 98 leaves about 84 years. Now, this is the first piece I ever made. Made that in 1933 as a sophomore in high school.
Well, it's a beauty, and they used to teach shop back then.
They taught shop back then. This dining table, I was a junior in high school when I made that. That's a Duncan Fife design. And the sideboard on the side is walnut with holly inlay. You can see the inlay a little bit, streaks around there, with crotch walnut.
And that was a senior project.
And
it
I
looks
made
like.
that as a senior in high school.
While Al was building these masterpieces during high school, he was making quite the impression on the baseball field as well, and even had an opportunity to go pro.
All I wanted when I was in high school, I thought, was to be a professional ball player. That's what I thought I wanted to be. And I played on the high school team and was pretty good. And our manager knew Frankie Frisch, who used to be the manager of the St. Louis Cardinals. And he was coming through town one summer in 1937 on an exhibition game with the Cardinals. And my high school coach persuaded him to come and watch us play an exhibition game. And we did, and I was a center fielder. And I did pretty well that day, and Mr. Frisch offered me a contract to play professional ball as a senior in high school.
Wow.
Well, I was on cloud 9. I thought the world had come to an end and it was all in my favor. I was going to be a professional ball player. I was 17 years old, couldn't legally do anything. Took the contract home to get my parents to sign it. And my mother started crying and said, "But you would have to play on Sundays." We were a very religious family.
Yes, sir.
My dad said, "I thought you would be something besides an old ball player." I didn't do what kids do today and tell their parents to go fly a kite. They didn't tell me no. I understood they didn't want me to go, so I didn't. And I went back the next morning, broken-hearted, told Mr. Frisch that I couldn't do it. My parents didn't want me to do it, so I didn't.
Wow.
And I went this way.
Your background, your family history includes furniture makers and woodworkers.
Yes, my father was a good woodworker, and his father was a master woodworker at a large millwork company in Chattanooga. And in 1930, my father went to work for that company as the superintendent of the company. So here he was, a son was superintendent bossing his father. Anyway, my father put me to work there when I was 14 years old, sweeping the floors, and I would get through sweeping the floors and I'd go to Dad and I'd say, "What can I do now?" He said, "Go over there and help your grandfather." So I did, and my grandfather put me to some serious work that I didn't know how to do. But under his watchful eye, for 4 summers, I worked under his supervision, and I mean strict supervision, and learned a tremendous amount of woodworking. So I learned enough about woodworking to go out on my own and do it, but never did professionally because at that time my grandfather was making 75 cents an hour. And I began to realize that that wasn't a whole lot of money, and thought maybe I'd get an education and try to do a little better.
So you went to the University of Tennessee, is that right?
So then I went to the University of Tennessee. After 2 years, the war came along. I went into the U.S. Marine Corps and was in an engineering group there, and sent to the Hawaiian Islands to draw all the plans for the forward base combat teams. I spent 3 years in the Marine Corps, was discharged, and came out, went to work in Chattanooga for combustion engineering, designing large steam generators.
And so you're pretty much an expert draftsman in the before computer style, where you sat down and actually drew everything.
I gained expert drafting status, loved to do drafting, could draw anything, make drawings. That's what I did for 5 years at Combustion. And then I got an offer from TVA as an engineer. They're the ones that qualified me as an engineer. I didn't do it. They qualified me as an engineer.
Well, Al, this is just a beautiful piece. I can understand why it won the Masters People Choice Award. Tell me about this piece.
My grandson was just beginning school and came to me that he would like to have a desk on which to work. So I sat down and made several sketches and came up with my final design and drew the plans for this desk, and then ordered the lumber and made the desk for him when he was 8 years old. I wanted some really figured walnut. You can see it's quite figured. They call it fiddleback. And then I accentuated that with the drawers using tiger maple and then ebony drawer pulls.
Look at this cellaret. That's more of a traditional piece.
Yeah, now this is the old cellaret design of the early South.
It was a liquor cabinet.
Yeah, liquor cabinet.
Yeah.
And it was a Hepple White design that a lot of the wealthy people in the South used back then. It's strictly a copy of one of those. The inlay work is pretty well traditional with the traditional furniture of the Old South.
Not only is the work just perfect, this is of your own design.
That's my own design. And I might show you here this hard line right here.
Mm-hmm.
I think it kind of makes the leg.
It really does.
That hard line. And underneath, it's all put together. It's all dovetailed. Every joint in the underside is just dovetailed.
Well, that is just beautiful. And you say you accomplished this with a spoke shave, is that right?
Yes.
Now, this piece is one that has brought you all kinds of acclaim.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, I saw a picture in Home Furniture put out by Fine Woodworking back, 12, 14 years ago. I thought, well, I'm going to make something like that one of these days. And finally I got around to it. And so I bought the mahogany and cut it all out. And my heart wasn't in it. The mahogany simply had no character to it whatsoever. It was just plain wood. The green didn't want to show up. But anyway, I had the side pieces already made and took it to a friend of mine who had a big sander to get sanded. And he said, Al, I've got some pretty mahogany. I said, really? Yeah. Well, he had it upstairs in his attic. When I got it, and he had 4 boards, 16 inches wide and 16 feet long, of beeswing mahogany, which were leftover backing boards from a veneer mill here in Knoxville. It was the prettiest wood I'd ever seen.
Beeswing.
Beeswing, and that what you see here is the beeswing mahogany.
Well, that is just gorgeous by any standard.
I spent 700 hours working on that over a period of 8 or 9 months, something like that.
Al Hudson's life is filled with accomplishments, whether it's the dozens of masterpieces he's designed, both contemporary and period, his family who proudly shows off his fine furniture in their home, and even his athletic accomplishments. Did I mention that Al is a scratch golfer? Of course he is. It seems that everything Al Hudson is involved in turns to gold, just like that golden rule he's always lived by.
I would just like to be remembered as a decent human being that loved his fellow men. I love to teach woodworking. I love to pass along what little knowledge I have of this marvelous craft. I love to pass it on and just be remembered as someone who enjoyed helping someone else learn how to do good woodworking.
Improve your woodworking experience. Sign up for Wood News Online, a monthly newsletter showcasing the latest news, tips, and classes Highland Woodworking has to offer. By signing up, you'll receive the latest episode of the Highland Woodworker, special store promotions, and Wood News Online delivered straight to your inbox. Sign up today. That's all the time we have for the show today. But check us out on social media and come back to see us next time on the Highland Woodworker.